ESPN, and Diamond P Sports present from the National Hot Rod Association Championship Drag Racing, the NHRA Southern National. Speeds in excess of 275 miles an hour, covering the quarter-mile distance in less than 6 seconds. Drag racing from the NHRA. The NHRA World Championship Tour, stopping at 14 major event sites during the year. 13 of the races conducted in the United States, 1 in Canada. Gainesville, Florida was the location of the last NHRA National Championship event, and a record-breaking crowd jammed Gainesville Raceway to see some exciting upsets. Former world champ Joe Amato returned to his winning ways, capturing the Top Fuel Championship in a dramatic confrontation with Florida's Darrell Gwynn. Earlier, the young man from Florida had established a new national record of 5.22 seconds, covering the quarter-mile racing distance quicker than anyone in history. But the title and the prize money went to Amato, as he outdrove and outperformed Gwynn in the Gator Nationals final. Don Prudhomme sat out of drag racing for a year, chafing at the layoff. His return to the sport at the first race of the season was less than spectacular. He failed to qualify, but the 4-time world champion made all the right moves at the Gator Nationals, parlaying consistency and driving skill to meet Johnny West in the final. Mechanical problems slowed West, and Prudhomme had his 35th championship win. Butch Leal, driving a Pontiac Trans Am, noted for his cat-quick reactions off the starting line, faced a strong challenge from the powerful Thunderbird of world champion Bob Glidden. The Gator Nationals win was decided on the starting line, not the finish, as Glidden left the line before the green light, thus disqualifying himself. Leal the winner. Now it's on to Atlanta, Georgia, and the fast-growing city of the South is hosting the next stop on the World Championship Trail. Atlanta International Dragway is just north of the city, and it's jammed to the limit with race fans from throughout the southeastern part of the country. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and welcome to Atlanta International Dragway. There's over $585,000 in cash and awards been posted for the 7th annual running of the Nationwide Auto Parts STP Southern Nationals. It was at this track 1 year ago that Bob Glidden's quest for an unprecedented 7th Winston World title took a dramatic turn. For more on that story, here's Steve Evans.
David, it was 1 year ago here at Atlanta that in different livery, Bob Glidden faced off with Butch Leal in the semifinals of Pro Stock. Glidden won by an eyelash, but a malfunctioning parachute suddenly turned the Ford Thunderbird left, and it smashed head-on into the opposite guardrail. A series of rolls and flips left everyone concerned about Bob's safety. Miraculously, he crawled from the wreckage, a little bumped, a little bruised, but in some ways in better shape than his wife, Etta. Earlier, I talked to both of them about returning to the track that hosted their darkest ever moment.
Well, Steve, you know, you go through the lights, you pull the chute handle, and from there on, what happens, happens. You really have no control over that. Really, I wasn't concerned about making the lap down the track. I was concerned about getting down the track. We have a lot of problems annually at this racetrack, simply being able to get down the track. And our first run out, we went a 7:44, and which was, I think, a track record and the quickest, certainly, we've ever run here. So maybe things are looking up for Atlanta for us.
How long before you can put that incident of a year ago out of your mind completely when you come here?
Oh, I don't know if you ever really do. As a matter of fact, the incident travels with us from racetrack to racetrack. In some ways, it's been really good, though, because we're really a lot more safety conscious. We're more concerned about checking things on the car and in the chassis, and it's done as much good as harm in some ways, because I think it's opened the eyes of a lot of other pro stockers too. You know, things that we used to take for granted, and it was just a careless little mishap, you know, like getting in and perhaps not getting the shoulder harnesses quite as tight as they should be. These kind of things now I think we all look at.
Well, apparently Glidden's Atlanta jinx is over because he's qualified #1 for this race to come. Now, remember, a few weeks ago, we were at the beautiful Texas Motorplex in Dallas with the running of the Winston All-Star Drag Races. What a terrific, exciting event that was, until rain postponed the Top Fuel final. Yesterday, NHRA paired up those two finalists to determine that title. It was Dick LaHaye up against Dan Pastorini. The winner would be paid approximately $6,000 per second of work.
We got oil pressure.
You were listening in on a two-way radio conversation that took place yesterday between Dan Pastorini and his crew.
She feels good.
With one of the largest purses ever for a single race, there was lots of pressure on both drivers. Steve got Dick LaHaye's viewpoint.
Dick, your feelings on today's race for $30,000?
Well, you know, Steve, we've had a couple weeks to think about this thing, and we put a lot of forethought into it. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time trying different combinations and trying to see how we could get on this track in the best fashion. And there's a lot of pressure on it. We've had a long time to think about it, and we're going to go out there and give it our best shot and hope that we can run low ET in the final session.
However, there were considerable problems in the Pastorini pits.
As if a 2-week wait isn't long enough to finish this contest with Dick LaHaye, now you get backed into a corner a little bit mechanically.
Yeah, we haven't really run that well here. We've had problems all weekend in every qualifying attempt that we've tried. We outsmarted ourselves the first run. We went back to our old combination thinking that the track wasn't good enough to hold the power that we're capable of putting out. And we didn't run as good. The car wouldn't come unstuck, it wouldn't get on the tire and run. So we put the other motor back in it, but we had a crank problem with that, and we were down on power because of the blower again. So we put this other motor in, and it had plenty of power, and we sheared one of the input shafts off, and we're struggling to make the field solidly right now, but we have this final round coming up to settle a score, and we're a little confused over here right now, but I'm sure we'll figure out something.
She's getting pretty hot, buddy.
After the 2-week wait, the change of racetracks, the sorting out of combinations, it boiled down to the fact that one driver was going to take home $30,000 for a single run down a quarter-mile racetrack. LaHaye, based on his performances at the Texas Motorplex, had the choice of lanes. He took the right lane, the lane furthest from the camera, feeling it provided a better racing surface. But the race was over as soon as it began. Mechanical problems continued to plague Pastorini, forcing him to slow. LaHaye, the Winston All-Star champ.
Well, it took a couple of weeks, but this man is going to make a sizable bank deposit come Monday morning. Yes, it ran good, Dick LaHaye. You are the Winston All-Star Top Fuel champion at 5:37.
Well, we'll take it. You know, we waited 2 weeks for this thing, and we began to wonder if we was ever going to get this thing run or not. I feel like I've run the race by foot, to be truthful with you.
Probably a few times at night.
Yeah, we thought about it a lot, and we came in here with a completely different combination, and it looks like it's going to work out pretty fine.
It's time now for the Southern Nationals, round number 2 of Pro Stock Eliminator. These amazing cars have quite a following all across the country, particularly in the Southeast, and the fans at Atlanta International Dragway have plenty to cheer about. The Pro Stock car of today is a very sophisticated example of the chassis builder's art. Utilizing a portion of the original steel body mated with fiberglass doors, fenders, and hood, the NHRA rules allow for construction of an all-new tubular chassis and suspension. Hailing from the Atlanta suburb of Duluth, Warren Johnson drives the Mr. Goodwrench Oldsmobile Forenza. The winningest NHRA driver ever with 52 career victories, Bob Glidden wheels the Motorcraft quality parts for Thunderbird. The engines in Pro Stock racing are limited to 500 cubic inches and must make their power from racing gasoline. No exotic fuel blends allowed here. To further equalize the racing, the cars can weigh no less than 2,350 pounds, including the driver, with a maximum of 2 4-barrel carburetors. The sport of championship drag racing demands the utmost concentration on the part of the driver to try for every possible advantage off the starting line. Both drivers staging. Glidden in the far lane, a nearly identical start. Glidden begins to power ahead. And it is a comfortable margin of victory at the finish line. Bob Glidden wins it. His elapsed time, 7.43 seconds. The 1987 Nationwide Auto Parts SDP Southern Nationals is being brought to you by Fram Bendix Auto Light, which are all quality products of Allied Automotive. And by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. And by Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you. In the top fuel bid area, Don Garlett's crew working to prepare his car for the second round race against the record-shattering Darrell Gwynn. This heated rivalry continues here at the Southern National.
When Warren Johnson is tearing down the track, he's under a lot of pressure. And so is Kurt, his son and chief mechanic. That's why he chooses a spark plug he can count on, Autolite. You see, the pressure in a high-powered engine like this is enough to melt down the tips of ordinary plugs, but Autolites are tough enough to take the heat of Warren's engine. Are they special racing plugs? No, they're the same kind you use in your car. But don't take it from Warren Johnson. Take it from Kurt, his mechanic, Autolite.
Back at the NHRA Nationwide Auto Parts STP Southern Nationals, a record-breaking crowd jammed into Atlanta International Dragway has just watched Bob Glidden move into the semifinals.
Well, it took a year, but Bob Glidden has finally run the final that would have happened 1 year ago had he not crashed his car, and it looks like the Atlanta jinx is a thing of the past, a 743.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, this is just another round. Every round in this Pro Stock's like a national event final. We ran Don Kuhn's first round, Warren this round, and chances are we could have Bruce Allen next round. Every round's like a final.
On the starting line, the burnout procedure underway for our next two competitors in the second round of Pro Stock Eliminator. Gary Brown drives the Oldsmobile Forenza he is racing against, the Pontiac Trans Am, wheeled by Tony Christian. Out of Sarasota, Florida, Tony Christian moved into Pro Stock just over a year ago. Now driving the Volante and Earl Pontiac, he beat Jerry Ekman in the first round. His competition, racing for Oldsmobile out of Buford, Georgia, is Gary Brown. He defeated Houston's Pete Smith in round number 1. The burnout procedure completed, the tires as hot as they can be. Both drivers concentrating on that Christmas tree, trying to get that advantage off the starting line. Gary Brown drives just a bit too hard. He left the starting line too early, left the red light on the Christmas tree, giving the win to Tony Christian, wasting a great 7:53 elapsed time. Christian having a bit of a handling problem there as the car slows from that 184-mile-an-hour winning effort. Back on the starting line, a pair of Chevrolets, two very diverse cars. Here's the brand new Chevrolet Beretta of Joe Lapone. Originally a front-wheel drive car, converted now to Pro Stock racing. That 500 cubic inch engine sitting up under the silver and red hood scoop in the front of the Beretta. This is the first competitive appearance for the Republic Tobacco Joe Papers Special of Joe Lapone. He is racing against one of the toughest Camaros in competition, that of Bruce Allen, the car campaigned by Rare and Morrison from Arlington, Texas. In round number 1, Bruce Allen, driving the Levi Garrett car, beat Mark Powick, while Joe Lapone defeated Reed Wisden. Earlier, Steve had a chance to look at Joe's new car.
This is one of the most eagerly awaited and controversial Pro Stock automobiles in a long time. It's Joe Lapone's 1987 Chevrolet Beretta, the new generation of small cars from Chevrolet. The advantages to a Beretta? Well, the rules allow you to make it a rear-wheel drive as a Pro Stock, and it's got a much smaller frontal area. That's got to be better aerodynamics. Also, the wheelbase a couple of inches longer, Joe feels will add to stability of the automobile. Now, NHRA rules require that the body not be changed in any way, shape, or form. Not the windows, not the fenders, anything, as far as their dimensions are concerned. Well, chassis builder Don Ness found that he had to move the rear axle 2 inches forward so that these huge rear slicks would clear this rear window without modifying the outside of the body. Joe showed up at the Gator Nationals, and NHRA Tech people said, Joe, you can't do that. He said, well, there's no other way to build a Beretta. The car was not allowed to run there. Later on at Dallas at the Winston All-Stars, again, not allowed to run. But now, everyone's gotten together, realized the problem. If we're going to see these cars, they've got to allow it. The rule has been changed, and Joe is in competition here with that rear axle move just slightly forward. The car closer to stock configuration than almost any other.
And in his first competitive appearance, Lapone has been consistent in the 750 range. Will it be enough to beat Bruce Allen? A brilliant hole shot for Joe Lapone. Allen and Lapone side by side, and Bruce Allen pulls it out in the last few feet. The Rare and Warren Morrison Camaro wins the race with a 7:48 elapsed time. LaPone still at a 7:55. He used a hole shot off the starting line. In other words, he left the line before Bruce Allen. That could have paid off big, but Allen found the horsepower in the Camaro to drive past Joe LaPone in the last few feet of the racetrack, and just by a matter of inches, Bruce Allen pulls by Joe LaPone to win and move into the semifinals of the Southern Nationals.
Well, it took that Warren Morrison horsepower to get around that new Chevy Beretta of Joe LaPone's, a 745, did it?
It's a good thing we got a fast car. Got a lousy driver, I'm telling you. I'm struggling a little bit, but we're going to do our best to get out there and get Bob.
But lately, Joe LaPone has been beating up on everybody on the starting line. He's not just picking on you.
No, Joe's a good driver, and he does a real good job. He gets up there, he just knows what he's going to do. He just goes up there and does it. It's a little hard to go up there with the confidence when you've been struggling a little bit like I've been, but we'll go out there and give it our best. Buddy and Dave come through again.
Indeed they did. That big Chevrolet made the difference.
Steve, a big win for Bruce Allen, but a great debut in competition for the new Chevy Beretta of Joe LaPone. It's now a pair of Pontiacs on the starting line. Heating up the tires in the burnout, the winner of the Gator Nationals. This is Butch Leal. His opponent is Lee Dean. Now, these are two basically identical type cars. They are Pontiac Trans Am Firebirds, 1987, the vintage. The big difference is how they're set up and how they're driven. Lee Dean, driving for the Sterling Brothers Racing Team, defeated Larry Morgan in round number 1, while Butch Leal at the wheel of the Nationwide Auto Bars Pontiac defeated Nick Nicholas. The point to look for here, and certainly on the mind of Lee Dean, is Butch Leal's legendary reaction times. He has probably won more races by being able to leave the starting line first, having those quick reaction times, than any other racer in drag racing. And he does it again, a great hole shot for Butch Leal. But Leal's Pontiac got the muscle, too. He not only outdrives, he outruns Lee Dean. A 7.53 second elapsed time. Great speed, over 185 miles an hour. That brings about our semifinal bearings. Butch Leal will race against Tony Christian. Leal earned lane choice with a quicker elapsed time. The classic Ford versus Chevrolet battle. Bob Glidden against Bruce Allen. Glidden having lane choice. But now, the hottest rivalry in drag racing is on the starting line. Big Daddy Don Garlits against young Darrell Gwynn, both from the state of Florida, the two most talked about drivers in drag racing. Darrell Gwynn searching for the consistency to match the performance that will allow him to win the races. The reigning world champion Don Garlits, driving the Super Shop Streamliner, defeated defending champ Dan Pastorini in round 1. Earlier, Steve talked with Darrell Gwynn about running Don Garlits.
In the continuing maturity of young Darrell Gwynn, are you at a point now where Garlits is another competitor? Nothing special about racing him?
Well, deep inside, he's really not another competitor. He's still Big Daddy, but Bernstein keeps pumping it into me that, hey, he's just another racer, you know. He's pumping it into me all before this round. He's saying, hey, he's just another racer. So with the help of Bernstein, I think we'll be okay.
You and Big Daddy have been having a little war of words in the press. Is that all fun, or is there a serious side to it?
Well, it's all fun and games, you know. We beep when we go by his museum, when we travel by, and I don't know. I used to stop there all the time when I raced my alcohol car, but since I've been racing fuel, it's like, I don't know if I'm welcome there anymore.
The 25-year-old Darrell Gwynn at the wheel of the Budweiser dragster and teammate of Kenny Bernstein impressed everyone with a great 5.23 second elapsed time to take home the #1 qualifying spot. 30 years of age separate these two drivers, and Don Garlits is relying on a lot of experience at this point. Garlits and Gwynn, and an engine explosion for Garlits. Gwynn to the finish line, and the quickest elapsed time and new national record, 5.20 seconds. The crew, headed by his dad Jerry, elated. Don Garlits has got to be disappointed. The engine giving way just off the starting line. He and Gwynn battling it out as they passed the Christmas tree, and then disaster struck for Garlits. A flash of flame, an exploded supercharger, and Darrell Gwynn on to the finish line with a new national record. A tough break for Don Garlits.
Well, there is something you won't see very often on Don Garlett's car. I cannot remember the last time Big Daddy exploded a supercharger. No one is easier on parts and pieces than this veteran. But, Don, that was quite a kaboomer. I haven't seen you do that in a long time.
Something must have dropped a valve, I guess.
There seems to be a rash of that going on, particularly in the funny car camp, but they don't know what it is. At least you have an idea here.
Well, it has to get fire in the manifold from something. It obviously something, it was because it wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just kind of moving along. All of a sudden it backfired.
How did it feel to you before this happened?
It was decent. It was making a good move. You know, it wasn't nothing spectacular, but...
Okay.
Wynn may have won this one, but Garlett's out on race days to come. We'll be right back to the Nationwide STP Southern Nationals. Back at the Nationwide Auto Parts STP NHRA Southern Nationals, I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and we're in round number 2 of Top Fuel Racing. This is Earl Whiting, a commercial lumberman from Monticello, Washington. Whiting is racing against an agribusiness executive, Larry Minor. Coming up on the NHRA World Championship Tour, the exciting Spring Nationals in Columbus, Ohio. For ticket information, call the number on your screen. Larry Minor has 3 cars in competition in the nitro-burning categories, a funny car, and 2 Top Fuel dragsters, including his own, one of the quickest in the country, having already run in the 520s earlier this year. In the first round here at the Southern Nationals, Minor's Miller American entry beat Bob Strauss. His competition, Earl Whiting, driving the Whiting and Markley Special, defeated the Texan Eddie Hill. The burnouts are over, both drivers getting ready for the race. It's a good start for Earl Whiting, but Larry Minor runs into problems, some tire smoke. He shuts it off, and the engine sounding very bad on Earl Whiting's car as he crossed the finish line. Look, his speed, only 235 miles an hour. Let's see if we can figure out what happened. Minor has shut it off at this point, the car beginning to lose traction. Whiting streaking for the finish line. Let's watch close. There it is.
Well, Dave, not only were there problems with Don Garlett's supercharger, but look at the one of Earl Whiting's. As he is still out on the racetrack, we're traveling with him as the crew tries to get him off. That entire supercharger is loose on top of that manifold. The blower belt is gone. But for Earl Whiting, this has been his greatest day ever in NHRA Championship drag racing, and you can bet this crew will have it all back together.
Steve, you're right. There's a lot of damage and a lot of work ahead. But Gaines Markley and his talented crew have done it before. Here's Jack Ostrander rolling his 3,000 horsepower dragster into a puddle of water, dampening down those 18-inch wide slicks, getting set for the burnout. Spinning them so fast that the rubber literally burns, getting those slicks as hot as possible, getting them as clean as he can. The purpose of the burnout is to improve the traction capabilities of the race car. When you travel a quarter of a mile in a straight line from a standing start, every little improvement in traction certainly helps the performance of the car. Ostrander in the near lane, running against Dick LaHaye, who at the wheel of his Miller American Racing entry beat Bill Mullins in round number 1. Ostrander, out of Pontiac, Michigan, defeated Hank Endres in his first round competition. Checking the starting line, getting a little moisture up off the racing surface. That is actually fuel that is spilled out of the fuel tank on the burnout. It will evaporate by the time the race car reaches the starting line and gets ready to make the run. LaHaye, the second Top Fuel dragster in that Larry Minor racing team, has his daughter Kim as the crew chief. His son Jeff also works on the car, helps prepare it for the race. Yesterday was Kim LaHaye's birthday, and she could wish for no greater birthday present than to see her dad in the winner's circle at the Southern Nationals. LaHaye has a great start. He pulls away easily from Ostrander. And Dick LaHaye advances to the semifinals. 5.38 seconds his speed, 263 miles an hour. The competition in Top Fuel dragster, absolutely intense. Here is the Gator Nationals champion, Joe Amato, coming from Old Forge, Pennsylvania. Moving a few years ago out of the alcohol dragster ranks where he was a big winner, Joe Amato has been a big winner in Top Fuel racing. He took home the World Championship in 1984 and is the fastest man in drag racing. The Top Fuel dragsters have gone through a series of evolutionary changes over the past few years. Gene Snow's semi-streamliner, one of the great examples of the developmental work that has gone on with these cars since their inception way back at the start of drag racing some 30 years ago. Gene Snow, driving the Snow Oil Company special out of Fort Worth, Texas, beat Richard Holcomb in the first round, while Joe Amato at the wheel of the TRW Keystone Automotive car beat Gary Ormsby. It was in that first round race that Ormsby smoked the tires, but the big story was Joe Amato and his top speed. Amato set a new national record of over 279 miles an hour, making him the fastest driver ever in the sport of drag racing.
Well, Joe, I know it's a lapse time that you really care about, a 5:29, but here's a little bonus for you, a brand new speed record, 279.
200 brownie points for the Winston World Championship.
That's right.
That's a good start. But I wanted 280, Steve, real bad.
Steve, Joe was the first at 260 miles an hour. He wants to be the first over 280. Can it come here? No, smokes the tires, and Amato to the finish line. Wins the race to go to the semifinals. His time, 5:35, but only 273 miles an hour. That sets up our semifinal pairings of Joe Amato against Earl Whiting, with Amato having lane choice. The other pair in the semifinals, Darrell Gwynn with lane choice against Dick LaHaye. Let's go down and join Steve in Earl Whiting's pit area.
Out of that red trailer of Darrell Gwynn was just borrowed a key component that's going to keep Earl Whiting in eliminations today. He had destroyed 3 superchargers during this event and had none left. Darrell Gwynn has loaned him a $3,000 supercharger. Now, that is certainly a nice gesture of sportsmanship, but also a pretty crafty one, because if Earl couldn't get to the staging lanes, it gave Joe Amato a single in the semis, an automatic gift into the final round. He's now leading the World Championship points chase, and Gwynn did not want that to happen, so Earl Whiting will be there to square off with Joe Amato.
Steve, regardless of the reason, you know Earl Whiting has to be thrilled to be in the semifinals of the Southern Nationals. It's time for Funny Car Eliminator, and this is Mark Oswald. A massive burnout by Oswald, driving the Candies and Hughes Ford Thunderbird, finishing number 2 in the world last season against his competitor in this race, the man wearing the big number 1 and reigning world champion for the 2nd year in a row, Kenny Bernstein at the wheel of the Budweiser King. As we saw, he's up against Mark Oswald, driving the Motorcraft Quality Parts Ford Thunderbird. The fiberglass body shells covering those 3,000 horsepower nitro-burning engines. Bernstein in the far lane, Oswald in the near lane in a great race. Bernstein begins to pull ahead and wins by over a car length. Kenny Bernstein, once again, the dominant force in funny car racing, 5.61 seconds, 264 miles an hour. While in the Pro Stock pit area, they're getting ready for more great racing at the Nationwide Auto Parts STV Southern National. Working in the Darrell Gwynn pit area at the Nationwide Auto Parts STV Southern Nationals is like looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. The big red canopy casting that rosy glow as they prepare this car for the semifinals. We're continuing in round number 2 of Funny Car Eliminator, and this is Billy Meyer, owner of the Texas Motorplex, racing against John Force from Yorba Linda, California. Force winning his first round race in the Castrol GTX Oldsmobile against Jim Head, while Billy Meyer drove his Chief Auto Parts Ford Tempo to a big win over Raymond Beadle at the wheel of the Blue Mac. Both drivers creeping into the light beams that go across the starting line. They turn on a light at the top of the Christmas tree, indicating the cars are in the proper position. The drivers are set and ready. Then starter Buster Couch throws the switch, and if all goes well, a green light starts for both cars. And Billy Meyer leaves first, but John Force is right alongside of him. An explosion for Billy Meyer. The body's off the car. Fire coming out of the engine. Meyer fighting for control. The chassis without a body spins out, and he brings the car to a stop. Meyer climbing out of the car. As the wreckage remains in the center of the racetrack, he calmly strides away. A great driving job by Billy Meyer to come out of that explosion unscathed. As we watch again, you can see Meyer and Force have a great race going as they pass the Christmas tree. And then something going wrong in the engine of Billy Meyer's car, exploding that 3,000 horsepower motor right in his face. The force of the explosion strips the body off the car, fire coming out of the engine, but Meyer is able to keep it in his lane and direct it towards the finish line. Meantime, Force on a good run continues on to take the win, and Meyer bouncing the car to a stop with just the remnants of that fiberglass body hanging on to the rear portion of the chassis. As Meyer comes across the track, you can watch him now with the body off the car as he literally steers it into a skid to bring the car to a stop in the shutdown area. Meyer showing his driving expertise as he comes out of this without an injury.
You're okay, obviously.
Yeah, I'm fine. I don't know what happened, obviously. It went out there and it did its normal deal, and it nosed over, and I shifted, and I was ahead of him. I'd already driven by him.
And kaboom.
And surprise, yeah. It's not fun. This is the 4th time this year, especially when you're not finding the problems.
That's right. But there seems to be a rash of this going on, and no one seems to know the problems.
No, that's true. That's true, and it'd be nice to find them out. I'm getting tired of buying bodies. I told Sal when I put their name in lights, I didn't mean it that way.
Thanks, Billy. No one has the attitude of that young man.
Steve, that's for sure. We'll be right back with more funny car racing from the Nationwide Auto Parts STP Southern Nationals. A record crowd on hand for the Nationwide STP Southern Nationals near Atlanta, Georgia. There's some great racing coming up in the Winston Drag Racing Series north of the border at the Grand National Molson, June 26th through the 28th at Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Make plans now to attend. Here is the 3rd car in the Larry Minor Racing Team. This is Ed McCulloch. McCulloch in this round of competition will be up against Tom Hoover. From Maple Grove, Minnesota, Hoover, driving the Champion Auto Store's Pontiac Trans Am, defeated Tom McEwen in the first round, while the Miller American Racing Team entry of Ed McCulloch defeated Doc Holliday. It was during qualifying that McCulloch had some very tense moments as his Oldsmobile Forenza left the starting line against Jim Head. McCulloch drifted out of the groove on the racetrack. When he did, the car lost traction, made a quick left turn, and as you see, collided with Jim Head. Both cars remained upright and coasted across the finish line, neither suffering any serious damage. Looking at it again, you can see McCulloch in the far lane starts in the center of the track. The car then moves out towards the guardrail. At that point, he lost traction. The car taking a left turn, Head had lost traction. He slowed, and that allowed him to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time. McCulloch up on 2 wheels, looking like a thrill show driver. The headers on the left side of the engine apparently kept the car from overturning until he could steer into the skid and bring it back to all 4 wheels.
I've been suggesting to Ed McCulloch he rename his funny car Christine, because indeed, Ed, it seems to have a mind of its own. That was incredible.
Well, Steve, yesterday we went out there, and the groove in this racetrack is pretty narrow, and when you get out of the groove, if you look down the racetrack, it's pretty shiny on the sides. It's like running on water out there. And it was the last session, and we had it hopped up pretty good, and we were going for it pretty hard, and I went out there and got out of the groove, and I mean, it came around, and you know, and it usually if it comes around, it'll want to hook. When you lift, well, it didn't want to hook. It just kept on coming, so.
Well, unfortunately, unlike Christine, it can't repair its own body damage. The crew had to do that here in the pit area, but it's ready to go.
On the starting line is the repaired car of Ed McCulloch. He is in the near lane. Tom Hoover in the far lane. Hoover with the advantage off the starting line, nearly 500ths of a second. But look at the horsepower of Ed McCulloch just driving by the last half of the racetrack. Ed McCulloch dominating at a 5.66 seconds, 260 mile-an-hour charge. Back on the starting line, the man that won the Gator Nationals, Don Prudhomme. Returning after a year's layoff in the sport, Prudhomme and the Skoll Bandit defeated Bruce Larson in the first round. Larson, a member of Joe Amato's racing team. Against Prudhomme is Scott Coletta, a second-generation drag racer wheeling the Coletta Flying Services entry. He beat Johnny West in the first round. Coletta has had his share of problems at this race. In fact, they had to put in a new engine to get ready for this race against Don Prudhomme. Prudhomme has taken the far lane. He had the lane choice, but it goes for naught. He goes up in smoke, and Coletta heads to the finish line. What an upset! Scott Coletta advances to the semifinals with a slow 6.30 second elapsed time, but it really doesn't matter. He earned the right to race against John Force in the semifinals, with Force having lane choice. The other pairing finds the quickest car at the race today, Kenny Bernstein, against Ed McCulloch, with Bernstein having lane choice. In the Joe Amato pit area, his wife Jerry putting the final touches on the fuel for the next run, while the crew headed by Tim Richards gets the engine ready for the semifinal race against Gene Snow. On the starting line, it is time for the semifinals of Pro Stock Eliminator. Tony Christian at the wheel of the Volante and Earl Pontiac, pulling on the line lock. You can see him holding down the button on the top of the shifter. That locks up those brakes so that car cannot roll unless he wants it to. Butch Leal and Tony Christian side by side off the starting line. And it is Leal first to the finish line. A great race for Butch Leal, moving him into the final round with a 7.51 second elapsed time, a speed of over 185 miles an hour out of that Pontiac. Back at the starting line, we're looking inside the Chevrolet Camaro of Bruce Allen. He pulls the levers on the transmission, shifting the gears. As he does his burnout to heat up the tires. Let's go to Steve with Butch Leal.
Well, Dave, interestingly enough, Butch Leal may be going to the final round, but he's trapped in the car at the moment as he cannot get the window net off. So I think I'll just talk to him through the net. You won it with a 7:51.
Well, it's a little better run than I run before, Steve. It's hotter now and everything, and we kind of hopped it up a little. But I'm sure Glenn's going to run about a 45, so we're going to have to start in line again. Here we go. We're back to the starting line to try to do a good job and see if we can outrun him. Bruce may beat him. Bruce is running real good, and I'd like to see an upset here, maybe.
Well, first of all, you better get some scissors and cut your way out of the car. Let's go back to the starting line.
Steve, on the starting line, the Ford of Glidden is in the far lane, the Chevrolet of Bruce Allen in the near lane, and Allen has a very slight advantage. As they pass our camera position, it's almost an even race, but Glidden pulls ahead at the finish line to win it by a tenth of a second. He ran 7.43 seconds, actually quicker than Butch Leal's prediction, at a speed of 187 miles an hour, and there's your final. The Pontiac of Butch Leal against the Ford of Bob Glidden, with Glidden having lane choice. Top Fuel coming up next at the Nationwide STP Southern Nationals. At the Nationwide STP Southern Nationals at Atlanta International Dragway, I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and the work proceeds in Kenny Bernstein's pit area. This is normal between rounds maintenance, the dismantling of these engines and putting them back together again to get ready to race, as we see Dick LaHaye is set in the near lane in the Team Minor entry. He is against the quickest car in the sport, Darrell Gwynn. LaHaye has been consistent in the 5:30s elapsed time, but Darrell Gwynn has been in the 5:20s. In fact, he has set the national record at a 5.20 second elapsed time. The final staging procedure being conducted. Gwynn using the very short and small front wheels, while the more conventional taller wheel and tire combination for Dick LaHaye. Last into the staging beam, Dick LaHaye. And it's a whole shot for LaHaye. He put a driving job on Darrell Gwynn. Look at the race. Oh, my gracious. Darrell Gwynn wins it by just a few inches. What a tremendous race. 5.29 seconds at 270 miles an hour, the winning time. Listen to the losing time. A 5:33 at 268 miles an hour for Dick LaHaye. LaHaye in the near lane had a 0.04 of a second advantage off the starting line, and he almost pulled it off. It doesn't get any closer than this.
Dave, both Darrell Gwynn and Dick LaHaye came down here just shrugging their shoulders. Neither knew who won that drag race. Darrell, you did.
What a tight race, man. I heard the motor, something changed tone in the motor about three-quarter track, and get out of the car and look, and the headers blew off, so that might have slowed it down a little bit because he creeped up on me. I wasn't expecting that.
5:29.
What'd he go?
He went in the 30s, but he left a little ahead of you.
Yeah, he did. I knew he'd be right there, but we got one more round to go, and I'd like to run a 20 in the final and cap this off.
Good job.
Darrell Gwynn headed into the final round to race against one of two men. Will it be this man, the surprising Earl Whiting, or will it be the fastest driver in all of drag racing, Joe Amato? Amato had lane choice. He chose the lane furthest from the camera, thinking maybe it might give him a slight advantage, but we've seen some very equal performances out of each lane on this racetrack. Earl Whiting, remember, is using borrowed parts He had to borrow a supercharger from Darrell Gwynn just to make this round of competition. A great start for both drivers. Equal off the starting line. Whiting brings it back under control. And Whiting, it appears he shut it off early, and Joe Amato comes by him to win the race. A very slow 5:73 compared to what you saw just a moment ago out of Darrell Gwynn. Watch again. They're almost together at this point. And then all of a sudden, Whiting falls back, and Amato pulls ahead to win and go into the finals against Darrell Gwynn, where Gwynn will have lane joy here at the Nationwide Auto Parts STB Southern National. Funny car racing next at the NHRA Southern Nationals, but first, want to remind you of the Summer Nationals coming up 9th through the 12th of July at Englishtown, New Jersey. Make plans to be there. Now let's go to Steve with Joe Amato.
Joe Amato consoling Earl Whiting. He tells me that he left it a little bit, not wanting to blow up some borrowed parts, and that was let you by.
I know, it was, Steve, the car would move good half track and then the smoke the tires and went sideways. I saw him go by me, but I didn't want to give up, so I pedaled it. I got it going again. I shifted. And I said, we'll go for it. And he just something must have happened. I don't know whether his car, he lifted earlier one. It just kind of nipped him right at the end.
On the starting line, our first pair of semifinalists, Kenny Bernstein against Ed McCulloch, and the emergency hatch coming open on Bernstein's car, either letting some air in, or there may be a problem. Bernstein appears to be tightening up on his shoulder harness. Down comes the visor on the helmet, and it appears that everything is A-OK. Bernstein getting ready for his run against the defending Southern Nationals champion, Ed McCulloch. If you believe in statistics, Bernstein has got to have the advantage. In every round of eliminations, he has had a quicker elapsed time than McCulloch, but we've seen upsets today. Can another one happen? A good race. Bernstein appears to be in the lead, and by more than a car length. Bernstein's dominance continuing here at the Southern Nationals. 5:57, 262 miles an hour as he moves into the finals to race against one of these two men. Will it be John Force in the lane nearest the camera, or will it be Scott Coletta? Here's a switch. Force has lane choice. He is one of the few racers that prefers that left-hand lane. Steve?
Little smoke coming out the injector scoop of Kenny Bernstein's car, but he won't mind. Low ET of eliminations at 5:57.
Oh, super. Well, it was a good race for the Ace. He was right there, and the car performed well. We gave it a tickle a little bit. Dale pushed on it to see if it would pick it up some, and it did, but we got some problems. Something was making some terrible noise there.
I heard it as you were rolling in. You know, it would appear right now that lane choice isn't the advantage it was. As it cools off, that left lane rises.
You know, it's strange, but the left lane's always been the better lane here at this racetrack, and for some reason, we've all gotten stuck in the right the last 2 days, so it doesn't surprise me that it's come back around if there was ever anything wrong with it.
Judging by what I've seen in the semifinals, the close racing we've had, we're dealing with an equal racetrack now.
It is, definitely.
On the starting line, Scott Coletta has got that lane furthest from the camera, or the right-hand lane. This is the first time that Scott Coletta has ever made it to the semifinals in a funny car. He's racing the veteran John Force. Both cars ready, and a good start. Force smokes the tires, so does Coletta, but Force gets back in and recovers the traction and crosses the finish line first, moving into the finals against Kenny Bernstein. It will be the 10th final round appearance for John Force. He has yet to win a race. World champion Bernstein has lane choice in the funny car finals at the Nationwide STP Southern Nationals. At the Nationwide Auto Parts STP Southern Nationals, we're getting set for the final round of Pro Stock Eliminator. Once again, Ford and General Motors tangle the Pontiac of Butch Leal in the near lane against the flying Ford Thunderbird of Bob Glidden. A rematch of the Gator Nationals where Bob Glidden red-lighted away his chance for the win. Let's join Steve with John Force.
Well, if you're a regular viewer of our NHRA drag racing coverage, you know the story on John Force. John, this will be, what, your 9th or 10th final round appearance?
This is our 10th final round, and my 4th one with Kenny Bernstein.
And yet to win one. That might change today.
Never to win, Steve. There's a lot of people that love this whole race car, and a lot of sponsors that have backed me for years, 10 years. Mom and Dad's almost embarrassed. And it's time we step up here, and ain't making no promises this time. I'm just simply saying that this old group's come here to get rid of that bridesmaid deal. We're fighting back here. You saw the tire smoke. I never backpedaled a car so many times in my life. Luck's holding here this weekend, and we ain't going out without a slug out. I mean that.
I can't add a word to that. John Force goes into the final.
Steve, absolutely the best interview in drag racing. Here on the starting line, it is Butch Leal in the near lane, Bob Glidden in the far lane, for all the marbles in Pro Stock Eliminator. Leal's reaction time pays off. He's got the advantage off the starting line, the whole shot. But once again, Glidden drives by and wins the Southern Nationals. His elapsed time, 7.42 seconds. We'll be coming right back to the nationwide STP Southern Nationals. 2 races remain at the Southern Nationals, but before we get to that, let's join Steve with Bob Glidden.
Well, I am standing next to one proud bird and one very proud Hoosier. You finally conquered Atlanta, Bob Glidden.
I'll tell you what, I not only conquered Atlanta after the episode that went on here last year, but I finally beat Leal in a final. This is the first race we've won all year. You know, I know the people at Ford and people at Motorcraft are going to be glad to see the Thunderbird come through finally.
For world champion Bob Glidden, his first win of the season. For the driver in the lane nearest the camera, if he wins this race, it will be his first race ever. That is John Force getting the direction from his crew chief, Austin Coyle, as to how to drive this racetrack. Hopefully, they have it figured out because they're racing against the #1 car in the world, Kenny Bernstein. A good start. Bernstein appears to have the lead and pulls ahead, and Bernstein wins the Southern Nationals. The quickest elapsed time of elimination, 5.55 seconds. His speed over 264 miles an hour. It was a valiant effort on John Force's part. He did his driving job right, left the starting line identically at the same time as Bernstein. But the horsepower difference prevailed at the other end. The time for Force of 5:74. Steve?
For Kenny Bernstein, it's low elapsed time of the day at 5.55 seconds. And again, the big red car will be in the winner's circle. You did it.
Well, thanks, Steve. I tell you, it's great. It's been a tough day. A lot of work on the Budweiser Quaker State Buick today. We broke a clutch in the first round, like you saw. We got an input shaft and a rear end on the run before this. So my crew, Dale and Jim and Charlie and Jeff and Mike and all the people that take it, it took a lot of work today.
They're really taking a shot at you now. Not only the John Forces, but the Perdomes and the Oswalds. It's going to be a great year. It is a great year.
Well, it is, but you're right. They're great drivers, and they're going to do it. They're going to make it happen. And John left good then. He was probably out there. So there's nothing I can do but go up there and do the best that I can and just hope it works out. But with Dale, the guys working so hard at it, I hope I don't let them down.
I hear back on the starting line, your teammate, Darrell Gwynn. What do you think?
Well, it'd be great if he could do it. He's got a motto. It's going to be a tough race. I'd love to have a double for Budweiser and Quaker State today. It'd be great today to have that, and Darrell needs to get in there, and let's hope he does. I hope so.
David?
Steve, this final round match in Top Fuel is a Hollywood scriptwriter's dream. In the far lane, the team car with Kenny Bernstein, Darrell Gwynn, the quickest car in drag racing. In the near lane is Joe Amato, former world champion, the fastest car in the sport. Who will win? Great race, and something goes wrong with Amato, and Gwynn wins it. The Kenny Bernstein, Darrell Gwynn team doubles up. Top Fuel and punting car, look at the time, 5:29. A wave to the Diamond Beat Sports camera from Darrell Gwynn. What a great race as we watch in replay. Joe Amato actually had the advantage off the starting line. Some 300th of a second whole shot went to Amato. But he had engine problems down track. That let Darrell Gwynn by, and the win to Gwynn.
You've done it, young man. Not only have you set the record and qualified low, but you won the race, and that was really your goal.
It's about time. Low ET, you know, we all know it don't mean too much. We've done that before. I'd like to say it's a sweet win. Kenny Bernstein won, I won. This Bud's for you. I appreciate it.
And that will really make a points race for the World Championship between you now and Amato and the rest.
Yeah, it will, and I broke my jinx here in Atlanta. You know, I've never won this race, never done any good at all, and it really makes me feel good because I've got a goal for these next 2 or 3 races. I haven't got past first or second round these next 3 races, and I'm really looking forward to doing good at all 3 of them.
Well, the world's quickest versus the world's fastest, and it lived up to its billing. A terrific drag race. Joe Amato, some problems with the motor?
Yeah, Steve, it was a real drag race, but the motor, about 800-900 feet, it felt like something started going away, and he was ahead of me a little bit, and then he started pulling, made a big move on me, so I just figured something was going wrong, just shut it off.
These races just get better and better. Joe Amato, the runner-up, but you hear him congratulating Darrell Gwynn.
The NHRA Nationwide Auto Parts STP Southern Nationals on ESPN has been brought to you by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. And by Fram Bendix Auto Life. All quality products of Allied Automotive.